Welcome to my show, dear listeners, where we embark on fascinating journeys through the annals of history. Today, we find ourselves at the threshold of an extraordinary tale, one that spans continents, fuels imagination, and pushes the boundaries of human ingenuity: the space race. This captivating narrative is woven from the threads of scientific curiosity, political rivalry, and the unrelenting quest for exploration. To truly understand the genesis of the space race, we must journey back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when the seeds of space travel were first sown. It was during this period that remarkable individuals began to challenge conventional wisdom and dare to dream of the cosmos. In the frozen landscapes of rural Russia, a self-taught mathematician and physicist named Konstantin Tsiolkovsky spent countless hours pondering the mysteries of the universe. His groundbreaking work on rocket propulsion, published in 1903, would later inspire generations of scientists and engineers to pursue the dream of space exploration. Tsiolkovsky's theoretical foundations were not merely speculative. They were meticulously crafted from a deep understanding of physics and mathematics, laying the groundwork for the practical applications that would follow. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, in the United States, Robert Goddard, a brilliant physicist and engineer, was conducting pioneering experiments with liquid-fueled rockets. On March 16, 1926, Goddard achieved the first successful launch of a liquid-fueled rocket in Auburn, Massachusetts, marking a significant milestone in the history of space exploration. This achievement was not merely a novelty. It represented a crucial step towards overcoming the technological barriers that stood between humanity and the cosmos. As the world teetered on the brink of chaos in the 1930s and 1940s, the pursuit of space travel became increasingly intertwined with the development of military technology. The German rocket program, led by the visionary Wernher von Braun, produced the V-2 rocket, a technological marvel that would later play a crucial role in the space race. On October 3, 1942, the first successful launch of a V-2 rocket took place at the Peenemünde Army Research Center in Germany, marking a significant milestone in the history of space exploration. The V-2 rocket was not only a weapon of war, it was also a testament to human ingenuity and the potential for technological advancement. In the aftermath of World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a fierce competition to acquire German rocket technology and expertise. The capture of Wernher von Braun and his team by American forces in May 1945 would prove to be a pivotal moment in the space race, as they would later contribute to the development of the Saturn V rocket that carried astronauts to the moon. This event marked the beginning of a new era in space exploration, one characterized by intense rivalry and unprecedented cooperation. As we approach the dawn of the space age, the Soviet Union, under the leadership of Joseph Stalin, began to invest heavily in its own space program. On October 4, 1957, the Soviets launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, into orbit around the Earth, sending shockwaves across the globe and marking the beginning of the space race. The successful launch of Sputnik was followed by the launch of Laika, a Soviet space dog, aboard Sputnik 2 on November 3, 1957, demonstrating the feasibility of launching living creatures into space. In response to the Soviet challenge, the United States established NASA on July 29, 1958, with the signing of the National Aeronautics and Space Act by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. T. Keith Glennon, a seasoned administrator, was appointed as the first director of NASA, tasked with coordinating the American effort to explore space. The stage is set for a competition that would captivate the world, as two superpowers engage in a high-stakes game of technological one-upmanship, each seeking to outdo the other in the pursuit of lunar conquest. Welcome back to our journey through the history of the space race. The late 1950s and early 1960s were a time of great excitement and anticipation, as both the Soviet Union and the United States began to push the boundaries of space exploration. On January 31st, 1958, the United States launched its first successful satellite, Explorer 1, designed by a team led by Wernher von Braun, who had defected from Germany after World War II. This achievement marked a significant milestone in the space race, as it demonstrated that the United States was capable of launching payloads into space. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union continued to make strides in its own space program, with the launch of Luna 2 on September 12, 1959, which became the first spacecraft to impact the Moon's surface. This achievement was followed by the launch of Luna 3 on October 4, 1959, which sent back the first-ever images of the Moon's far side. These successes marked a significant turning point in the space race, as they demonstrated that the Soviet Union had developed the capability to send spacecraft beyond Earth's orbit. One of the most pivotal moments in the space race came on April 12, 1961, when Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human to journey into outer space. Aboard the Vostok 1 spacecraft, Gagarin completed one orbit around the Earth, marking a historic achievement that sent shockwaves across the globe. This event was followed by the launch of American astronaut Alan Shepard on May 5, 1961, who became the first American in space aboard the Freedom 7 spacecraft. As the space race heated up, both sides began to focus on the ultimate goal: landing humans on the Moon. On September 12, 1962, President John F. Kennedy delivered a historic speech at Rice University, where he declared that the United States would put a man on the Moon before the end of the decade. This bold statement marked a significant shift in the space race, as it set a clear goal for the American space program. The Soviet Union, however, was not far behind. On October 12, 1964, the Soviets launched Voskhod 1, which carried 3 cosmonauts into space, marking the first time that a spacecraft had carried a crew of more than one person. This achievement was followed by the launch of Voskhod 2 on March 18, 1965, which featured the first-ever spacewalk by Alexei Leonov. As we approach the midpoint of the 1960s, the space race is in full swing, with both sides making tremendous strides in space exploration. The world watches in awe as astronauts and cosmonauts push the boundaries of human knowledge, testing the limits of technology and endurance. Join me next, dear listeners, as we continue our journey through the space race, exploring the triumphs and challenges that mark this extraordinary period in history. Welcome back to our journey through the history of the space race. One of the most notable achievements during this time was the successful landing of astronauts on the Moon as part of the United States' Apollo program. On July 20, 1969, NASA's Apollo 11 mission made history when Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to set foot on the lunar surface. This monumental achievement marked a major turning point in the space race, as it fulfilled President John F. Kennedy's goal of putting a man on the Moon before the end of the decade. The Soviet Union, however, continued to make significant strides in its own space program, despite facing numerous challenges and setbacks. On October 12, 1969, the Soviets launched Soyuz 6, 7, and 8, 3 spacecraft that carried a total of 7 cosmonauts into space, marking the first time that multiple crewed spacecraft had been launched in close proximity to each other. This achievement demonstrated the Soviet Union's capability to conduct complex space missions and highlighted its commitment to continuing the exploration of space. As the space race entered its final phase, both sides began to focus on more ambitious goals, including the establishment of space stations and the exploration of other planets in our solar system. On April 19, 1971, the Soviet Union launched Salyut 1, the world's first space station, which marked a significant milestone in the development of long-duration spaceflight capabilities. The United States responded with the launch of Skylab, its own space station, on May 14, 1973. Despite these achievements, the space race was also marked by tragedy and loss. On April 24, 1967, Soviet cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov became the first person to die during a space mission when his spacecraft, Soyuz 1, crashed during re-entry. Similarly, on January 27, 1967, a fire broke out in the command module of Apollo 1 during a ground test, killing all 3 astronauts on board. The competition between the Soviet Union and the United States drove innovation and pushed the boundaries of human knowledge, ultimately paving the way for future space exploration and cooperation. As we look to the future, it is essential to remember the bravery, determination, and ingenuity of those who dared to reach for the stars. In the words of Neil Armstrong, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The legacy of the space race continues to inspire new generations of scientists, engineers, and explorers, reminding us that even the most ambitious goals can be achieved with perseverance, creativity, and a shared passion for discovery. Join me next as we explore the post-space race era and the ongoing quest for space exploration and cooperation. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.